back to Season 2 of Pack the Rock Podcast. I'm your host, Audrey Marr, and I'm joined by Kylee Corman and Carlo Barone, as always. Today, we have IDS Daniel Flick with us today. Thanks for coming on.
Hey, yeah, I'm happy to be here. Happy to finally make my Hoosier Network debut. This is a big day.
Oh,
big
let's
day.
go. Let's go.
Huge day.
Huge day. Huge. Huge day. Well, we do definitely have a lot to cover, but how's everyone's days?
I'm having a good day.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. How about you, Carlo?
I'm having an alright day. I just took a nap because I don't feel too hot, but
Oh, well, that sucks.
we'll get better this week and we'll be good.
Definitely.
I've been pretty good. Solid medium Monday today. Had a lot of pizza. Had a lot of free pizza. That's
How many
Nice.
slices
where
did
at?
you log this morning?
over
at the
presser.
over 4.5 smashed.
I had 3 big ones.
I think I had 6.
It's
maybe more.
not really filling, I feel like. Like, I could just sit there and eat it forever.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
No, that room does something too. I feel
That
like
room is different,
That room,
bro.
there's something with the room, honestly. But anyway, should we get into it?
Yeah, let's get
We'll
into
get
it.
into it. So, first Big Ten win since November of 2022. I'm just going to start this off and say that I was the only one that predicted this win. I also said 20-14, so I'm going to shut up about it now. But let's
You said
start.
20-14?
I said 20-14.
Oh my gosh,
I'm
Audrey.
so proud of myself.
Look, wow. It's
But,
gotta be
okay.
the most accurate one the whole year.
I know, that's crazy. So now I'm not the only one with a loss. I'm still the one with the most, but
I was
not
gonna
the only
say,
one. We're not going to talk about it. All right, let's start off with takeaways and thoughts from the game. Anyone?
Yeah.
I'll say that was easily their best performance of the year, and I think their first quarter really set the tone. I think that was their best opening drive to start a game this year. And I mean, they went up 7-0, and the way this team is structured and stuff, they can't play from behind, so they pretty much almost played with a lead the entire game. I think they lost it at some point, but
I think
they did.
Did they?
Eventually, but yeah, well, maybe
I don't
not.
think they did.
I don't think they did.
I don't think
No,
yeah.
they didn't.
They
Anyway,
also have scored first in the last of their 4 games,
no, wow.
That's crazy.
that's
which
that's
is
improvement.
Michigan, Penn State, and Rutgers.
Hang that Michigan first quarter graphic in the
Stop the count.
yeah. Hang that.
I
When
do
Lee
have a
Corso
picture.
scored
Yeah, I was
up
gonna
on
say.
Ohio State, stop the
Let
game,
me
made
take a
everyone
picture of
take
that real quick. But yeah, their fast start was encouraging. They kind of need to against a team like Wisconsin. Big Ten West as a whole is just not very good, but Wisconsin was at the top of it, so they were fighting for position to potentially make the Big Ten championship. But I mean, of the 4 teams that were atop the Big Ten West tied, I think 3 of them ended up losing. And Iowa, of course, in that 10-7 game at Wrigley Field, the 7th highest scoring game at Wrigley Field this year, by the way.
It was 0-0
Somehow
at
they're
halftime.
on top of the Big Ten West, but that's a whole different story. But Wisconsin did have stuff to play for, and IU just had more to play for, and it showed. And the Hoosiers got their first Big Ten win in, nearly a year. So I mean, hats off to Indiana to stay strong and pull out this one.
Yeah, I think the offense, again, sticking with Sorsby has really benefited them. It's you got to kind of wonder, like, what if they just went with Sorsby from the beginning, and where would this Indiana team be now? But obviously, that's in the past. You can't change anything. I do worry about his health a little bit. He was questionable before the game. I think if they lose him, that's going to, obviously, it's going to be a big hit to the offense. Just, again, switching quarterbacks in and out. But I was pretty impressed with that game. I was a little nervous at the end, but they somehow pulled it off.
Yeah, I think, Indiana's defense finished really well, and especially the way that they finished against Penn State, I think that was a pretty key talking point. I want to say Wisconsin's last 5 drives, they had 1 or 2 punts, 1 or 2 turnover on downs. I think 2 fumbles mixed in as well. Shutout over that, I think, last 25 minutes of action. So I thought that was a really big response after the way that they kind of crumbled at the end in Happy Valley. And so, I think you kind of mentioned it, Carlo. Probably the best all-around performance they've had this year, even though the offense had like 36 total yards,
Oh, jeez.
in the second half.
The second half offense was rough.
Yeah, we don't really talk about that, though. So
I kind of
They got
wonder
it
if they
done.
were going for a more conservative play call and just hope the defense could hold it up. And because we learned today Cam Camper's out for the season.
That's a
Sorsby's
huge
a
loss.
little battered up. They've got injuries up and down, so it could be a factor. Who knows?
Definitely. I kind of agree. I think, like, I also said it in everyone's kind of touched on it, but it's the first time that it seems like both sides of the ball really clicked for Indiana, and also obviously how they played in Penn State. To see that now, obviously, they should have probably been at this place a little bit earlier in the season, but this is the time that they need to do it if they want to win out and get to a bowl game, and I think that they have the chance. So, but moving on, obviously, Donovan McCulley and that one-handed
Oh my
catch
gosh.
was
That was
crazy.
Insane.
Absolutely crazy. But let's talk a little bit about the receivers. Obviously, Cam Camper out for the season. It doesn't seem like obviously they've found a way to pretty much move around it with DeKeys Carter, Donovan McCulley, and EJ Williams also having a big game. But does this impact the rest of the season at all? And obviously, it seems that Sorsby and the receivers that they do have right now have clicked.
I will say, now that Cam Camper is out for the year, he missed a lot of chunks last year. And the problem last year is they couldn't really get any separation, and no one was really winning their routes. So basically, I kind of just stand there and eventually we just run out of the pocket and have to throw it away because no one was getting open. It's really encouraging to see that the wide receivers had a good game without him this year. I mean, EJ Williams, I believe, had more yardage in this game than he had up until this point. Obviously, he missed, I think, every quarter but like the first 5 of the season. But that emergence is huge. And you've got him and you've got some other Donovan McCulley. I mean, that catch was unbelievable. He's a big target, especially in the red zone. He had that one that he ended up dropping. But regardless, you call that play again, I don't think he drops it again. Especially what we saw minutes later with the one-hand catch. I mean, you throw it that guy's direction, he's almost like LeBron. He'll just go up and get it. But I think it was very encouraging to see E.J. Williams come out of his shell and kind of have an impact game. I mean, that was a huge third down that Sorsby found him on, I believe it was the first drive, right down the middle for a 22-yard gain that ended up setting up Sorsby's touchdown run. So I think the emergence of that, even without Cam Camper, is huge for this team. And if they're going to win these last 3 games, get to a bowl, I think E.J. Williams, and I mean, they're going to have to keep stepping up. McCulley, I mean, they have been stepping up, but they're going to have to continue and not lose the primary focus of the offense because your leader, Cam Camper, is gone.
Yeah, I think I said EJ Williams as my breakout player, or I put him for something on my round table. But obviously, I watched him a lot when he was at Clemson, and he can really break out when he wants to. And I think especially now with the absence of Cam Camper, he's definitely going to step up. He stepped up, and those plays that he had were all, they're probably not all 10-plus yards, but the yardage that they needed to get down the field. And I think if they continue to use him more into this offense and figure out what way that he will be used, I think this offense could get even more successful than they already are now.
I think this offense does have a lot of potential, but a few plays that just keep sticking with me are when Donovan McCulley got overthrown twice in the end zone. Indiana has struggled in the red zone this whole season. And these next 3 games, while possible, they're not going to be handed to them. It's not going to be easy. And even the Wisconsin game, I mean, you had a missed field goal, and I think they settled for a field goal there. So essentially, that's 7 points, however you want to look at it, that they're giving up. And that definitely they would have helped them against Wisconsin. They got lucky, but those are plays that you have to make.
Yeah, I think wrapping up the receiving core, one of the things that E.J. Williams actually mentioned today about McCulley is that he said at Clemson he talked about some of the guys that he played with who eventually ended up making NFL rosters, and he said he thinks McCulley can absolutely follow that same path, which, considering he's played receiver for 2 years, I think is highly impressive. But yeah, I think it's a room in general that has talent. You think back, I know McCulley's obviously been really good. You've got Omar Cooper, who's had some really impressive showing so far, too. He left early last weekend, but Tom Allen said today it's probably not a long-term problem. So I think it feels like with Camper out, the opportunity is there for somebody to kind of keep ascending and really emerge as a clear number one. I think McCulley probably claimed that last weekend. Now it's all about
Carter's done
consistency.
well, too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think Takis Carter is definitely being utilized a lot more as well.
But again, I also think that they trust Sorsby more to throw the ball. We're seeing a lot more of that from him than we ever did with Taven.
Yeah. Well, a lot of, I wouldn't say controversy, but a lot of personal questions, I guess, on what the solution has been for the success within these last couple of games. A lot of people saying Sorsby, a lot of people saying Rod Carey, but what are your guys' opinions on who has been the answer to get all sides of the ball clicking?
I think that marriage has been good for everyone involved. It's giving Rod Carey, like we've mentioned before, was Sorsby's coach on the scout team, and now that they're both in predominant roles, it's definitely showing that their chemistry on the field. Because to quote him earlier in the year, he says we're going to do what works and we're not going to do what doesn't work. And a lot of quick throws have seemed to be Indiana's bread and butter. And he knows what he knows what Sorsby is good at and what he's not. The one thing I will say about Sorsby, he does not turn the ball over. That interception against Penn State, I mean, other than that, I can't really remember many other times where he's had a back-breaking interception that's cost Indiana either a big drive or a situational spot. He's not given away the football, and he's produced offensively. And if you're not giving it away, I mean, that's a good solution to win, even if you're not scoring the most points. I mean, 20 is not the most, but I think they only averaged like around 19 a game anyway. So it was an average game, but the defense really won them this game. I'm sure we'll talk about that later, but I think this marriage has definitely helped the offense and helped Sorsby's confidence in being able to have some big time throws. And he for sure made some on Saturday.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything that you can necessarily point to and say this is the reason for Indiana's turnaround, which are we really calling it a turnaround? They just won their third game of the season. And what week are we in now? 8, 9. So, yeah, I think the team has become more cohesive. They've had more time together. They're learning each other's patterns. Getting rid of Walt Bell, who was a very conservative play caller. And I think Rod Carey's up for a little bit more risk. I mean, that's what his predecessor got fired for, is not take. Is that the right word?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I think so.
Okay, just checking. But I mean, he knows that that's what he was fired for, was not taking risks, running the same play over and over again. And I think that I want to say the obvious choice for the quarterback, but it wasn't obvious. They were pretty neck and neck. But I always kind of thought that Sorsby was the better of the two. I think it just ultimately came down to the politics of it. We've talked about this before.
100%.
Yeah.
So I think they kind of had to show, like, okay, this is what we're working with on both sides. You guys pick. I think all of that played factors into where they are now, but they're on the rise. Again, in week whatever it is, but
Week 10.
Week 10.
Week 10.
It's
Pulling out,
week
10?
Yeah.
Jeez.
Pulling out predecessor on the spot is very impressive. that is not in my bag.
I was thinking about it. I was like, is someone going to call me out if I use the wrong word?
Yeah, no, but it's funny because actually E.J. Williams had a lot to say today, actually. So
That was the one interview that I just decided I thought we were done. The camera was packed up.
I was, I think, making my second trip for pizza when he started to talk again, which is not great. But yeah, no, I quickly locked back in. Very good thing I did, because I actually asked him a very similar question about what we're talking about right now. Indiana scored 20-plus points in consecutive games for the first time since week 5 of last year.
Oh, my gosh.
Which is very telling. But what EJ said is that it's about play calling and execution more than anything. And then I asked him about clarifying the play calling statement, and he mentioned that they're not running the triple option as much. which is probably a very big, very, very happy talking point for a lot of people. And then he also said that they threw it 30 times last game. So kind of revisiting the aggression that we talked about earlier. I think that's, I think Sorsby has been a very, very good answer, and I think he's only going to keep on improving. And I'm very excited about what's to come for him. But I do think that Rod Carey off the field has been very helpful for that room. And on the field, in the booth, you're seeing some flashes that Walt Bell for sure there really weren't any positives coming out of the Walt Bell experience this season. So I think Carey deserves a lot of credit.
I will say I feel like and I felt this a couple weeks ago, just a whole new energy around the team. And Daniel, you can back me up here. Last Monday media day, oh my gosh, it was so much fun. Even though they lost to Penn State, that is the happiest that I have seen any of the coaches, any of the players. I mean, even today everyone was pretty cheerful, but I mean, you can they just have a whole new outlook on this team, and whether that's Rod Carey, whether it's not, this team is a different team, I will say.
Yeah, we were freezing in there, but it was fun. It was a good environment. It was a very good environment.
We all bonded over it being freezing.
We did. Everybody that got off the elevator walked and was like, man, it's cold in here. And we're like, yeah, join the club. So
doesn't help it's like 70 out today, too.
Yeah.
I left the house this morning, and I was going to, bundle up, and I was like, no, it's 75. And then I was like, that room is 30, so let me grab something a little warmer.
All right, well, that was a great discussion kind of on defense. I agree with all of you. I don't think you can really name one, but I think that they've both had definitely a lot of their own impacts, and I think it'll be interesting to see throughout the rest of the season. But let's move on to the defense. Obviously, defense, a massive part of the game as well. They held Wisconsin scoreless in the first and fourth quarter. So, I mean, what worked? We'll start with that. What worked for the defense on Saturday?
I mean, Aaron Casey. That's end of discussion. I mean, those 2 sacks in the fourth, or I think he had all his tackles for loss in the second half. That sack on the last drive it pretty much ended the game. Running clock, it was going down. But besides Aaron Casey, I mean, they had a really good game defensively. I won't act like the Wisconsin offense is reinventing the wheel or anything, but
You love that phrase.
have I used it on this pod before?
Are you being serious?
That's a joke.
Okay.
I have. But, I mean, Wisconsin's not the best offensive team anyway, especially when they didn't have their starting running back, who you could argue would be the Big Ten running back of the year. When you don't have your best player, obviously it's a little bit harder, but that's not to discredit Indiana. They still played a fantastic game. And their secondary, like it has been pretty much most of the season, was pretty outstanding. Jordan Shaw, I mean, after the game, it looked like it was funny because that was his first media availability probably all year. And everyone, walking by, all the players are like, yeah, Shaw. And it was funny because you could tell he was trying to keep it cool, but inside he was like, "Ooh, I get to talk to them now." But
he was excited.
He had a great game.
9 tackles.
Oh yeah,
no, that's what I'm saying.
Great.
I was saying that during the game. I was like, Jordan Shaw's having a really, really good game, and then when we saw him in the thing, and he was talking about the locker room being turned.
Yeah, that was so funny.
He was so excited, just talking into one singular mic.
I mean, he almost got that. He had the PBU in the 4-2, but that could have very much been an interception. I mean, that's someone that you would have never really thought would step up and make big plays like that with pretty much their season their season was on the line, and he came in and he played a great game. So hats off to Indiana's defense. Obviously, Aaron Casey, I feel like I'm saying that every single week, but I mean, Jordan Shaw, and another week of Josh Sanguinetti, making an impact play. We're getting another fumble, another turnover, and I think that was huge that they got as many turnovers as they did.
I was worried about what the defense would look like without Noah Pierre. That could either go one of two ways. Either they completely crash because they lost one of their top leaders, or the defensive back room is very young. There's a lot of potential there, and so either those people were going to step up and really shine, or the defense was going to tank. And everyone has really taken advantage of the situation, I would say, and taken that moment to shine.
Yeah, I would throw in Lou Moore as well as an important part.
Yes.
They
For sure.
So Allen and actually I think it was Jordan Shaw today too mentioned that Lou Moore has been more vocal since Pierre left for the season, and so I think that leadership role is so important there. We were kind of talking about how young the whole secondary is. When you have a guy like Lou Moore who's played a lot of football, played at a high level, kind of take that next step as a leader, I think we're seeing the results right now. And the way that Indiana finished that game, Aaron Casey was everywhere. The pass rush in general, it felt like Wisconsin was really just kind of like a step behind the entire fourth quarter. Maguire, I thought, was very good, very aggressive. And Indiana, as opposed to Penn State, it felt like played to win on Saturday, as opposed to the conservative, we're going to try not to lose as they played against Penn State. So that was a refreshing twist, I would say.
If you remember after the game, too, Alan talked about how I used this bite in my package, and that's the only reason I remember it. But he was like, Lou Moore basically was like, no, I want this guy, because they were going to switch him off. He's like, I want this guy. And he talked about the importance of having a defensive back, basically having that confidence, like, I'm going to take him and I'm going to shut him down. And that's exactly what I'm going to do. And he talked about the importance of having those leaders kind of step up and having that guy you can trust to make those big plays. And I mean, if you remember on the last drive too, he was guarding, I don't know the Wisconsin receiver, but it was a big play down the middle that if completed, they would have been way up the field, and Lou Moore was there just to get it away. But having a guy like him in the locker room that will give you that confidence that, hey, like, don't worry, guys, I got him, he's gone, is very important, especially for a team that did lose their 6-year guy, Noah Pierre.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I definitely want to mention Josh Sanguinetti. I know that they were mentioning either during the game or before the game that they were considering starting him over Philip Dunham. And I think a lot of people were like, what? Like, what in the world? That makes no sense. But more and more over the games, we've heard his name. And obviously he came up with that big play in the end, or picked up the ball at the end of the game and ran it in. Obviously, not that would have probably changed anything if they weren't going to get down the field in 6 seconds. But Josh Sanguinetti, we heard his name throughout the entire game, I think a lot in Penn State as well. So he's stepping up as well. Obviously, Aaron Casey, yeah, you can't really go without speaking of Aaron Casey in any podcast or any game. But yeah, I think the defense definitely was the biggest part of this game. But special teams has also been a big concern, but they seem to do better this week. We saw DeKeys Carter in the punt return position. What do you guys think about that?
Well, obviously went better than it has been going.
For sure.
But I feel like he just played smart. He knew that what was on the line there. And if there was a ball that he knew he wasn't going to catch, he ran up 5-10 yards, acted like he was going to catch it, let the defense crowd him, and the ball was 10 yards back. So I think he played the position safe, he played it smart, and honestly, just playing it safe is exactly what Indiana needs, because so what? You start the drive from the 10-yard line, whatever it is, at least you're not just handing the other team 7 points like they have been.
Yeah.
I will say the fact that we're not ripping the special teams immensely is just an improvement in general. They had a quiet game, which is good because they haven't in a minute. I think anywhere from where they were last week is an improvement, and they'll probably leave Carter there until he messes up, which, I mean, for his sake, I hope not. But yeah, the fact that we're not just ripping that unit to shreds, because they've probably been the worst of the three on this team this year, is just an improvement across the board. And the fact that it didn't cost them the game, I mean, if you think about the other weeks, that's 7 points they've given up to opponents. They won this game by 6. It's crazy what happens when you don't just hand the team a touchdown. You win some games. And the first time they don't do that, they end up winning. So, I mean, if they can just stay as stable of a unit as they were on Saturday the rest of the year, I think that we won't really have to talk about special teams as much as we have in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, I think with Carter too, not a apple to apple comparison or whatever the phrase is, but the touchdown that he had against Penn State, where it's like a fingertip catch, very, very difficult catch to make that I think says a lot about how good his hands are. And with as much trouble as Indiana has had just physically catching the punt this year, as simple as that seems from where we are, it's important, I think, to have a guy who's played a lot of football and who's proven he can actually catch the ball. I think Jalen Lucas is probably long-term the guy you would want back there, but I think he's pressed far too much, and he's been trying to always hit a big play, always break something, and it's not hard to see why when you think about how bad Indiana's offense has been for so much of the season. I can't blame him for it, but at the same time, it started to legitimately hurt the team. So I think that Carter, for sure, he didn't do anything bad. And at the end of the day, that's a very big net positive compared to where they'd been the first, 8 games of the year.
I think for the rest of the season, they're going to go in with 2 options on special teams or in the punt return position, and that's the safe option or trying to be explosive. And I think that they're going to be using DeKeys Carter trying to be safe and Jalen Lucas trying to be explosive. I think we saw the only time that they really ran out the punts was with Jalen Lucas in the game. And he didn't do horrible in that aspect either. I think in the opening part of the game, the opening return, he did really good on that. But yeah, definitely improvements, I think, all across the board. Obviously, we mentioned it before, this is the first Big Ten win that Indiana has seen since November of last season.
Been a long time coming.
Long time coming. But do we think that this game was a turning point for Indiana?
Okay. There's a couple ways to go about this. Number one, you could point to the turning point being Penn State because they played a top 10 team really well for 99% of the game, and then they ended up folding in the last 2 minutes with conservative play calls, fumble, safety. It was just a mess. But they played them well for 99% of the game. And then you go to this game, their first complete game, I would argue, all season against a good opponent, not like Indiana State or not even Akron. They played terrible against Akron, but that's besides the point. We won't really know if this is the turning point until, honestly, as soon as this Saturday or in 3 weeks. I think if they end up making a bowl game, which is still a long ways away, but if they end up making a bowl game, I think people will point to the Penn State game as the turning point. But I wouldn't necessarily say that their season is fully turned around. As Kylee mentioned, this is their 3rd win of the year and their first since September. I wouldn't say their season is turned around, but they're back in it enough where they can turn around after a lot of people wrote them off. I will say, if they make a bowl game this year, a lot of people on Twitter are gonna just be
Twitter blown.
Their jaws are going to be on the floor, and I mean mine will be on the floor as well. Let's not act like I'm above that, but I think there's a couple ways to point at this, but Penn State was definitely their first performance. Wait a minute, they have some life to them, and then they win this game. If they go in Champaign and they win this weekend, their confidence just keeps going up. Who knows?
Mm-hmm. I think you're right. I think Penn State would be considered the turning point. And I don't really know what to think of this Indiana team right now because they are high on confidence. They are feeling good about themselves, and they do know what's at stake. And I've said it week after week. The only reason that this team is even still trying is because they've been thinking about that bowl game. So the next 3 weeks are absolutely possible. But at the exact same time, if they go 0-3 the rest of the season, that also will not be a surprise.
Not at all.
Yeah,
These games are not going to be easy wins. Sorry.
That's on me. That's
No, it's okay. What you got?
Go ahead.
That's a good question. Now I feel bad. I think turning point is more in the way that they've played and the way that they've found success lately. I think that's
a turning point in attitude.
Yeah, for sure. And execution, I think, has been a lot cleaner lately too. And so I feel like that's on a smaller scale where you can see that they have clearly taken a step forward. Whether that ultimately leads to turning the entire season around is We'll see. I feel like at the end of the day, it's still Indiana football, right? And there's like a notion that it's just how long can it last? And realistically, if they went out, I think it would be stunning. I would love to see it. Like, I don't know. I kind of want to cover a bowl game.
Yeah,
like,
I would too.
I think it'd be enjoyable.
For personal, selfish reasons?
Yeah, 100%.
Absolutely.
Send me to the Idaho Potato Bowl. Like, get me
I've always
anywhere.
wanted to go to Idaho.
Me too. Yeah. Like,
We'd
just put me
find some
anywhere.
good stuff there.
But I don't know. I think even if they go 6-6, you have to look back on the season, and you could have beat Louisville. You lost to Rutgers at home. You got absolutely killed by Maryland. There's just so many things. You went 4 overtimes with Akron.
But I will say, I feel like it really does have a lot to do with the coaching change and Rod Carey. I mean, I'm not going to say that everything's fixed, and obviously we didn't see that right away, but I think the more and more that the offense has worked with Rod Carey has worked through the offense, we've seen success. EJ Williams said that they're not running the third option anymore. I mean, it's just, they're obviously finding stuff that works, and I think the more and more that they work together in that, the more and more success that they've been having. But go ahead.
Well, one more note on the turning point. Let's just keep this in perspective. They have to win 3 Big Ten games at the end of the year to get to a bowl game. In the last 2, this season and last season, they've won 3 total Big Ten games total. So they have to win the same amount of games that they've won the season and a little bit more than a half in 3 weeks. I understand the opponents aren't Ohio State, Michigan, or Penn State. They definitely have a chance just because Michigan State is having a program-altering year. I mean, Purdue is just, they're also having a program-altering year. They have less wins than IU in the Big Ten West, which is a lot worse than the East. And then you've got Illinois. I've been to one Illinois football game this year against Nebraska. Let me tell you, that was a awful game to watch. I wanted to leave, and not to mention it was so cold. Oh my gosh, I wanted to leave so bad because both the teams just didn't want to win.
Tickets are selling for $9.
Yeah, I believe it. That's also the
Yeah.
the price of the Pacers season opener. So, yeah, I guess it was, but. Winning 3 Big Ten games in 3 weeks versus a season and a little bit more and a half, if they can do this, this got to be the most improbable bowl game. They have to also be the worst team in the entire college football to make a bowl if they somehow get there. I've covered this team 2 years now. Like, if they make a bowl game, wow. I'll say that. And I mean, hats off to them if they somehow get 6 wins. Like, we get to cover a bowl game. That, like we mentioned, for selfish reasons, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I would not mind traveling to do that.
It's just, these are not going to be easy wins at all. Aaron Casey, Big Ten Defensive Player of the Year. Who was the Big Ten Offensive Player of the Year? Guy from Illinois. Who was the Freshman Big Ten Player of the Week? Not year. Whatever. You guys know what I meant. I pulled out predecessor. Let me have
You're
this.
1-1.
Hey, 500 will do it.
Yeah. That's what you need to try.
Hey, I'm a Steelers fan. We coast at 500.
Never below, though. Never below.
Never below. We never outscored our opponents, but we win. Anyways, Big Ten Freshman of the Week, also from Illinois. They came off that 27-26 win to Minnesota. And if you guys remember last basketball season when Illinois wanted to say they were huge rivals of Indiana, and Indiana was like, who are you? I mean, someone...
Yeah.
And okay, again, we're talking Indiana, Illinois football. So, some may say it's some type of rivalry, whatever. It's a Big Ten game. No, neither team is going to let this go easily. Michigan State, the problems that they're having, they're having problems, but they're not a bad football team. And again, they're not going to let Indiana have that easily. That game is what?
Nothing. There's this guy behind you, like, boxing. It's just funny. Sorry. Did you see that, Audrey?
We're fighting.
He knows.
You know what's funny? He's having the same conversation about us right now. We're having about him.
Two podcasts talking about the same
Yeah,
thing.
there's a UFC podcast going on the other side of the
Shout out
wall.
UFC podcast.
Parker Katona. No, that's not his name.
It's PJ.
PJ
Okay, I think
Katona.
we're talking to them about a lot more about them than they're talking about us at this
Yeah,
point.
facts.
Parker Katona went to my high school. That is a different kid. His name's PJ. Anyway.
Very important clarification.
Thanks for that.
Now I'm 1 for 2. Okay, Michigan State is not gonna give Indiana this win easily, even though it's at home. It's over Thanksgiving break, and if I'm a college student that hasn't seen my family, I'm taking the whole week off. I don't care about the Indiana-Michigan State football game. I'm going home to see my family. So I don't think, because, Memorial Stadium has been sold out every game all year.
Looking at this,
I don't think that's going to
Go
be
ahead.
a huge crowd, even though it's senior night. I don't know. And then if Indiana beats those two teams and they go into their rival, West Lafayette, and they need one more game to win a bowl, Purdue is not handing them
That is their Super
Yeah.
Bowl.
That
That
will
is.
be the bowl game.
Yeah.
So they have a tough, yes, it's Illinois, Michigan State, and Purdue, but they still have a tough schedule ahead of them. Nothing's going to be easy.
One more note in Illinois, too. If you guys remember, they had a great season last year, but it didn't start off great because they ended up losing to IU on a game-winning drive in Bazelak's first career start.
They have lost a lot of players.
I will say, though, they definitely that game, they know how bad IU is a program. They don't want to lose to them twice in 2 years, especially now that they get them at home. They know IU's fighting for their season. If they don't have that in the back, if we don't think they have that in the back of their minds, we're just straight up crazy. I think they're going to use that as motivation. And I understand a lot of people left from last year, but Illinois is definitely, as much as Indiana is on the rise, Illinois is also on the rise. They just beat a good Minnesota team who's top of the Big Ten West, and they're not. And Illinois is making this race a little bit more spicy than originally anticipated.
I think that this may be a hot take, but I do think that this might be Indiana's hardest game out of the three left.
That's not a hot take. That's just the facts.
Yeah. I mean, obviously going to Champaign, if Illinois thinks it's a rivalry, there could be more of a big student section there. But
It's nothing special. It's nothing special. I've seen
nothing
it.
special.
It's nothing special.
But obviously, I think Kylee...
On the ground reporting over here.
I was in it. I was like, this is okay. This is not great.
But yeah, Kylie, you mentioned it. I think it's been a turning point on attitude, and I think that they're all on the same page, coaches, players, that they want a bowl game, and whether that be the Purdue game, I do think that they're all on the same attitude, and if they come out playing, if they play all four quarters like they have been playing, like they did in Wisconsin, and pretty much, honestly, most of Penn State, I think that they do have some success. But anything else to close out on the Wisconsin talk? We've been talking about Illinois, but I guess this is still within the Wisconsin talk.
Wisconsin talk.
Wisconsin
You know what?
talk.
Chris Freeman. I think the pod for sure should shout out Chris Freeman for
Shout
the
out Chris
50-yarder at
Freeman.
the end. There you go.
Career long,
Yep.
too.
Career long, a lot
51.
of pressure on that kick. Especially after he missed one early in the game. I think that's I think James Evans was talking after the game about how mentally challenging that is when you're a specialist and you're not on the field, immediately thereafter. You have to wait, you have to think. Freeman mentioned today he had 35 seconds between walking onto the field and actually kicking. Which I can only imagine is going to add to the nerves of that situation. He said he wasn't that nervous, but realistically,
I feel like you have to be.
Yeah.
You lying.
So if you're not nervous, I feel like there's another question to be asked about that. But no, I think he deserves credit because again, Indiana went, I want to say 3 or 4 weeks without even trying a field goal. So for him to have 3 in that game, he knocks down 2 of them. That's 6 points. You win by 6. He hits a 50-yarder at the end where if he misses that, Wisconsin has it near midfield, needing
3
probably
points.
20 yards, to find field goal range. So that was huge. That's a kick that if that win becomes, changes Indiana's season, or, a turning point, if you will, that kick could be one of, if not the biggest reason as to why. So
I like that. Yeah. All right. Well, that will close us out on our Wisconsin discussion. So we will go into a little bit of our Illinois predictions, but make sure to stay tuned later this week as there will be another episode of Pack the Rock going into a deep dive of Illinois, the matchup this weekend. Okay. But first prediction. This isn't really a prediction. This is more of a question. But what leads Indiana to success on Saturday?
I will go with quarterback play. Again, that's a very cop-out answer right there. But I think that what we've seen this year, especially on the road, is that Indiana's quarterback play has not exactly inspired a lot of confidence apart from Sorsby at Penn State. That was probably the one time where, it legitimately traveled outside the state of Indiana. And so I think, Michigan, obviously they had the alternating. Maryland, Taven had a very rough showing. I might be forgetting one in there too. But I think if Sorsby can play at the level that he has shown the past 2 weeks, if he can practice this week, I think that's an important step. Because Rod Carey was saying today that his showing against Wisconsin was one of the most impressive he'd seen because he's physically, I'm pretty sure he only participated in a walkthrough last week. So if he can practice, if he can be healthy, if he can play at the level that he's shown, I think Indiana's offense ends up producing at a fairly high level, and this is not a game that you look at and thinking wow, this could be a real shootout. If they score 20, 21 points, this is a game that they realistically should win. So I'd say QB play is pretty important here.
I think there's a lot of things that go back to this entire season. What's cost Indiana? Turnovers, special teams, mistakes. Everything needs to play out perfectly for them. They also just need to stay confident. I feel like that's a big thing that, if you're just always going 3 and out, I think that could easily slip up. The defense could get tired. Just the same old thing. But I don't know. I think it's not going to be an easy one. I think, theoretically, on paper, this is one that they should win, but
It's the same for the rest of them, but honestly, who knows?
I'll say I think they need to get off to a fast start. I think that is very, very important. You saw what it did for them last week. And this Illinois team, the one game I watched them and looking at their stats from their quarterback play, I mean, I have a friend that goes to Illinois, and he's the most frustrated with their football team, with their quarterback. He's got 10 interceptions. And in the game that I watched against Nebraska was getting a ton of pressure on him, and he threw, I don't know how many picks he threw, but he turned it over a few times. So if you look at that recipe for success for Indiana, it almost lines up pretty well because the defense has done 2 things pretty well this year, I would say, and that is the secondary play and that is rushing the quarterback. And if you put on pressure on any quarterback, I mean, any level of football, that's one way to really disrupt a game plan. So I think in order for them to win, it'll definitely, the first quarter will be very telling about what this IU team is made of. And if they can start off 7-0, 10-0, I think playing with a lead is what this team would need. I don't think they're one to play from behind. I mean, if they go down 14-0, it might be wraps. I don't know if they can come back for that. Just because, like we mentioned, they've only scored 20 points in back-to-back weeks since the first time since week 5 of last year. 14 points in a game like this is a lot more points than in an SEC game, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I want to add to that too. Indiana is 19-3 under Tom Allen when they allow 20 or fewer points, and they're 2-0 this year in that same stat. So if they can, again, 3 touchdowns. 3 touchdowns. You need 3 good drives out of probably 10 or 11 you'll have in that game, and you realistically have a very strong chance of winning. So,
Yeah, I'm looking at Illinois' schedule. It's 27-24, 25-21, 27-26, 20-7. It's a lot of 20s. So I think the defense, one of the keys is definitely the defense and how they come in, and I think obviously we will see Aaron Casey as a massive part of that once again. But then I also think that they have to stick with playing for 4 quarters, because obviously that was one thing that we'd mentioned every podcast before Penn State, honestly, that they weren't playing all 4 quarters.
Probably since week 1.
Yeah, so honestly, they haven't been playing all 4 quarters until more Penn State. So if they continue to do so and they continue to test out all of their offensive weapons, it everything again just has to click like it did at Penn State against Wisconsin. And if they do, I think that obviously, I'm not going to say obviously, but I do think that they will have some success there. But anything to add?
I think it's worth to note they allowed 44 points to Purdue. That offense is not good.
Okay, and we've talked about this before. The transitive property does not count when it comes to the Big
44
Ten.
points to a two-win team. IU had 2 wins last week. I mean,
Oh, I know.
like,
But Illinois also beat Maryland.
They're so inconsistent.
And Maryland murdered Indiana.
Yeah, but their season's in the toilet now. They lost to Northwestern. I mean, this team is just so. Both teams are so inconsistent.
Maryland's Purdue in the NCAA tournament right now.
Good joke. But yeah, they're both inconsistent. I don't really know what Illinois team we're gonna get, but.
Okay, yeah, I agree. I mean, let's go into final score predictions because we're kind of running out of time a little bit. But who wants to go first?
I'll start.
This will be
Go
an
ahead.
interesting one.
I will start. Realistically, it's hard for me to pick Indiana to win this game just because I feel like I've seen too much Indiana football this year to confidently enter a game thinking that they'll win. So I'm going to go Illinois 2017.
2017.
I think that's pretty close to what it's going to be. As an Indiana student since 2020, I know that you cannot count on this team. When you think that they should do something, whatever you think they should do, they will do the complete opposite. When I was writing my article the other day in the press box, I had the lead written, another heartbreaker in Bloomington, and they ended up winning. But that's just, I feel like that's just how you kind of have to look at the program, and then if you look at it that way, you can be pleasantly surprised. So either everyone's going to be really surprised and really happy come Saturday night, or Barstool's breaking out the triangle.
No.
Oh, no.
I
Barstool's
can't.
breaking out the triangle.
It's not even basketball
If the
season
triangle
yet.
comes out
no.
again, I don't know what I'll do.
Which the triangle
Yeah.
just
The triangle
the
is the
triangle
triangle.
should be gone.
I think
But
it is.
Baker Mayfield cycle.
The triangle should never be used in terms of Indiana football at this point of the program, but I'm going to go very close to Flick over here. I'm going to say 21. I don't know if I should go. I'm going to go 21-14.
21-14.
Illinois.
Yeah.
Nice. All right. I'm gonna be I think you're probably. Are you going with similarly?
I'm going to let you pick first.
Okay,
I know who I'm going to pick.
I think I'm gonna go different again towards you two. I'm gonna go Indiana again because I think that they are really on the attitude train. I don't know what I was trying to say. Positivity train, I guess.
The LEO train,
the
if you
LEO.
will.
Yeah, the LEO train.
I will.
Have a great
So-
day, LEO.
I'm gonna stick.
Did we get one of those today?
I don't think so.
I don't think we did.
There's no way. That would have been.
No
I don't think we
way.
did.
Is timeout and quitting on LEO? My
Check the
column.
recording.
Oh no! Do I have to change my answer?
We definitely didn't get one because I remember. I think Jeff walked away and he was like, "Good, okay," walked away. I don't think we got one.
All right, I'm still gonna go Indiana. I feel confident in that. I'm gonna stick with the 20 scores, I guess. Looking at their scores, it's like 25-21, 27-26. I'm gonna go 30. That's different.
Wow.
Wait.
Let her cook. Let her cook.
I'm gonna go 30.
See, I was over here thinking about bringing mine down.
30-21, Indiana.
Wow.
I'm gonna stop talking. So, Carlo, go ahead.
You know, this is a hard game to predict. Both teams are really inconsistent. I'm going to go 27. No. I'm gonna stop there real quick. I'm going to go 24, 21, Indiana.
Wow, that's the first time you've picked Indiana this season.
Oh, yeah.
That is the first time.
No,
will say-
against Indiana State in Akron.
I think
okay.
think their
Thank you.
strengths match up with Illinois as well. I think Illinois is very inconsistent. I think their quarterback is very reliant on having a clean pocket, and IU's done a really good job of pressuring quarterbacks this year, regardless of the team they've played. I think Indiana's on the rise. I think they'll hit a game-winning field goal and walk away with still their season still alive.
Chris Freeman back-to-back
That's
weeks.
Chris
crazy.
Freeman, yeah.
Wow.
That's crazy.
What a time to
See,
be
I
in.
was thinking about bringing mine down to 14-10. I feel like this is going to be
Jesus
a,
really
Christ.
I feel like this is going to be a slow game.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like Illinois is very similar to Indiana in the sense that they're inconsistent. So
So inconsistent.
so inconsistent. So I mean, looking at the schedule, they literally they lost to Wisconsin 25-21. They beat Maryland at Maryland 27-24. Indiana lost to Maryland. What was it? 40.
A lot to 11.
44-17.
44-17.
Enough to firewall Bell.
Oh, enough to firewall Bell. So honestly, I don't know. So
But again,
yeah.
the property doesn't work.
Yeah.
PEMDAS does not apply to Big Ten.
So true.
All I know is we're walking in. It's going to be like mid-40s on Saturday. So, like, there's
Is
no
it?
way.
I thought it was supposed to be nice.
No, there's like no
lovely.
way I can picture this being anything other than like just
A
an old
painful
school Big Ten
West
slugfest.
game.
Yeah.
Midwest grind fest.
Oh, 100%. There's a bunch of grit though. A lot of scrappers, a lot of grit out
Oh,
there.
we talked
so.
about this last
we
week.
talked
Saturday
about
could be
some grit
perfect
last
weather.
time.
54 and partly cloudy, partly sunny. I feel like that's pretty
That's a
decent
little better.
football
Yeah,
weather.
yeah.
That's better.
Yeah.
When you're down on the field,
Football weather.
Yeah, down
Yeah.
on the field, it's a lot warmer than
Yeah.
it is up in the press box. All right. Well, that'll close us out unless anybody has anything else to add. We all good? All right.
Stellar.
Sounds good. Well, yeah, that'll close us out here in the studio. Thank you for joining us. This was a great, great time.
Hey, thanks for having me. I had fun. I hope I was a quality addition.
You
for
were.
the-
Definitely.
Daniel.
You were.
Hey,
You
thanks.
were. You were. Well, yeah, that'll do it. We will all actually be in Champaign for the game on Saturday, so make sure to keep up with the Hoosier Network for all of your IU basketball updates on Instagram.
Football.
Did I say basketball?
Yep.
So sorry, that's just on my mind. Football update, athletic updates. So Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, Spotify, all social media. And yeah, we will see you next week.
actually, I would
go
like to
ahead.
add one more thing. I just gotta, I always gotta pull up the receipts
All right.
when I was
Jeez.
right. But I would like to say, week 1 of the podcast, I said I don't think Cam Camper is 100%. I don't know if he should be going out there.
Wow.
And now he's out for the season, unfortunately for him.
Crazy.
I've called a few.
Called a few. You have.
You
Really
almost
have.
called that Louisville game, but the Mike Penix 2.0 didn't work.
I said Omar Cooper, said I liked him.
True.
What else? I've called a few more things. I don't remember.
I wonder if I'll be right about EJ Williams. We'll see how we. I probably.
It's
I don't
week
know if I
10.
will. It's week 10. Maybe these 3 weeks. But all right. Well, yeah, that'll do it from us here in the studio, and we will see you next week.